we're talking about this author, Charles Murray.
Yeah.
There's this whole philosophy that religion is for the weak, the poor, and the dumb. He was none of that. No, he was a very successful social scientist. And he was just going on with his life, and he didn't see any place in his life or need in his life for religion. A lot of little points along the way, and obviously he's a thinker, kind of led him to just accept the truth. He could see why the Christians had a reason to go out and try to get other people to become Christians, because they're trying to help people. They're accepting that people have a soul, and they're trying to help that person. But he said he couldn't understand why the atheists were trying to convert people to atheism, because he said, what's the upside?
Well, there's a lot of interesting points there, and like even the like the books that he's referring to and the other authors who have written about this subject, it's all like, wow, so many interesting points that you could dive into.
Yeah. I thought one interesting thing was he just came from a I don't need this stuff kind of background.
Yeah, exactly.
In other words, the title of the whole video was, I thought religion was irrelevant to me.
Yeah.
And it was wrong.
Yeah.
So he's actually completely changed from his original position.
Yeah. And many people might think that people who are struggling will invent religion as a kind of a balm to soothe their hurts and their pain and their suffering, and because you're suffering and you're just desperate for some solution, so you just invent this imaginary God or spirituality that you're following and believing in. But this is completely opposite. He didn't particularly, in one sense, need God. It's not like he was suffering or in a bad position in that way and had to invent something to soothe his pain, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. No, he was a very successful social scientist.
Exactly.
With an incredibly high degree, a PhD on several different levels, and went to MIT, which is a very prestigious school, and on and on and on. And like he was explaining, and he was coming from the 1960s, about the same time as myself.
Oh yeah.
He and I are probably somewhat the same age.
Yeah.
The late 70s, early 80s.
Yeah.
And so he, didn't really see any point or any need for religion. It was just something they say religion is for the weak,
Yeah,
the
exactly.
poor, and the dumb.
Exactly.
There's this whole philosophy that religion is for the weak, the poor, and the dumb. He was none of that, He was upper middle class, highly educated, had a lot of experience in the Peace Corps in Thailand, and so he had seen that part of life, and he was just going on with his life, and he didn't see any place in his life or need in his life for religion. I mean, didn't even I don't need that stuff.
Yeah.
And he was also saying there's a lot of people in his category, whether it's of the same age group or later, that have the same opinion. Well, yeah, religion, but I don't need that stuff. It's irrelevant to me. I mean, that's for other people if they want, but for me, it's just irrelevant. So that's an interesting background.
Very.
I mean, he wasn't forced into it, like you said, because of some difficulties in life. He wasn't in prison, and some preachers came to prison and converted him to Jesus, or he wasn't dying of cancer, or,
No,
yeah,
exactly. Exactly.
you know. But it was interesting how he said that his wife felt, what did he say after their first child?
She said she
She
said, I love my child more than evolution requires me to." And I took
Yeah,
note of that also. I wrote that sentence down because I thought
yeah,
that was so spot on.
yeah. Because evolution would say, yes, the mother needs to love the child so that she can pass on the genes and the
Yeah.
whole thing, you know? And she said, and that's evolution's requirement.
Yeah.
It's genetic evolution of passing on the genes and whatever. And she said, I love my child more than evolution requires. And that's what made her start looking for some, spiritual purpose or reason or foundation.
Exactly. Yeah.
And so she settled into a certain religion, Quakerism, and he just watched her and how it changed her and how it changed her life to a much different person than she was before. And he was attracted to that,
Mm.
not the philosophy and all that, just to what she found there.
And
And
he even said for a long time that he wanted to he wished that he could believe that or that he could follow that or remember that? He said like
yeah, yeah, he said, and by the way, we're talking about this author, Charles Murray,
yeah.
who has written quite a few different books. And each one, especially the last one, has kind of gravitated to a more of a spiritual, religious basis than just a secular basis. And he's a real advanced social scientist. So when we say he, that's who we're referring to,
Mm. Yeah.
this individual. And
What was the name of his last book? That
I can't even remember.
forgot the name now. um, but anyway, it was just about his journey. He said this is not like he was trying to convince anyone to, you know, to also be religious. He was just sharing his journey, and then everyone can do what they like with that if they, you know.
Yeah, he was just saying how it became more relevant to him. But he was also pointing out how he had started thinking somewhat before
Right.
prominent scientists had started to question the standard Big Bang theory and
Exactly.
et
Exactly.
cetera, et cetera. And one person long ago said it, and then another person reiterated it, and someone else later. But okay, then why something rather than nothing?
Yeah.
You know, I mean, if there's no spiritual basis or reason behind any of this, then why something rather than nothing? And that kind of just triggered a question like, yeah, you know. And then he started looking at this idea of the Big Bang theory and how the whole metaverse, he said, he was talking about when he looks up at night and he sees all the stars,
Mm.
et cetera, et cetera. And
Yeah.
how could this have occurred so perfectly that all these parameters necessary for this to occur just spontaneously from the Big Bang or whatever had to be exactly correct. All these things, components and et cetera, had to be exactly correct. And the chances of that happening was like 1 in trillions.
Yeah. Mm.
And that also made him just think, well, come on, that's not likely. Whereas behind it, if there's an actual creator, well, then that makes sense.
Hmm.
So a lot of little points along the way, and obviously he's a thinker, kind of led him to just accept the truth more and more.
Yeah, and that's the thing. If you're an honest thinker, if you're just reflecting on things, you don't like to just push something out that apparently actually makes sense just because it's conflicting with what you currently believe, or it's difficult to accept, or it will change a lot of things for you, because obviously it will. If you accept that there is a intelligence behind everything, it will change a lot of things.
Absolutely.
You know?
Yeah. Yeah, it was a very interesting interview. And another point in the interview was why he said the Christian, he was speaking because he's from America and a Christian country, why he could see why the Christians had a reason to go out and try to get other people to become Christians, because they're trying to help people. They're accepting that people have a soul, and they're trying to help that person, you see. But he said he couldn't understand why the atheists were trying to convert people to atheism, because he said, what's the upside?
Yeah, yeah.
There's all kinds of downsides to atheism, but what is the upside? Why would you be so, intent on trying to convert people to atheism?
Hmm.
And I thought that was an interesting
I
observation as well.
I agree. I agree. And yeah, he said you can again. I think he quoted someone, but he said he reflected on what's the downside of being wrong about religion. If you look at the downsides of being wrong about religion versus the upsides of being right about it, basically, what's the loss? Like,
Yeah.
if you are right, let's say you're trying to follow a religious lifestyle and then it turns out you were wrong. So you develop kindness, compassion, love for others, patience. You've been in silence a lot. You know, you've developed a lot of wonderful qualities that are transcendent. That is not like you, that are regardless, if let's say you were wrong about religion, you will benefit from all of that and the altruism and everything. Whilst if you're, I mean, and that's the worst downside. That's not a big downside.
That's
So,
not, yeah, that's not a
but
doubt.
but 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 if you choose
It's
that.
just good side effect.
Exactly, but if you choose that, no, I will live my life completely devoid of any higher meaning. There's no God. There's no nothing. I will not practice any of that. Then, of course, you've lost. You might have. You will lose out on a big aspect to life.
Yeah, the cons are very big.
Yeah, yeah, and
Yeah.
s- there's a saying, the better safe than sorry. I mean, yeah,
And another point that was made in that is that how you can see across all cultures and all time periods, there's that inherent attraction to good or doing the right thing. That the natural default setting for a human is to do good.
hmm,
And he gave an example of, forever, over countless years and still going on today. There's again and again a case where somebody will jump in the river to save a drowning person who they don't even know.
yeah.
Like, why would they risk their life if it wasn't inherent in them to help somebody to do good? Mm.
Which doesn't make sense from an evolutionary sense, because you
No.
have no relationship to that person. It's not part of your tribe. It's not.
Yeah,
Wouldn't make sense.
yeah, yeah. Or yeah, many things like that prove that there's something more. And he started off saying that he thought, because that's what he'd heard and been told and educated in, that consciousness was in the brain.
Yeah.
That we're the body, obviously, and the consciousness is in the brain. And when the brain stops functioning, consciousness disappears. But the, unlimited, now there's millions, he said in their thousands, but actually many years ago, there was 8 million recorded near-death experiences, and that was like 20 years ago. So
Mm.
you can imagine how many there are now. The countless millions of recorded, documented near-death experiences. When the heart stops, all organs cease to function, the brain stops functioning, all the waves, etc.,
Because
are
they usually measure that, so they can
yeah,
usually see
that's
that
all
it's all
usually they're all hooked
flattened
up,
out.
all kind of
Yeah,
machines, right?
exactly.
And yet, the person, when he returns to consciousness, remembers all kinds of things that were actually true that occurred while he was, quote, dead. No brain function at all. He was fully conscious, but not according to being any brain activity, but because he's independent, separate from the brain, looking down on it. And if you look at all these accounts of near-death experiences, you hear the same story again and again and again. The body's destroyed and somebody's up on the ceiling or up somewhere outside the body looking at the whole event as an observer and seeing things that are taking place, and then, come back and can recount all the things that took place.
Yeah.
What color clothes the doctors were wearing, or, I just saw recently one account where there was this person was out of the body looking, and there were ultimately 7 people in the room working on him. 5 people came in through the front door, but 2 people came in through the back door, which was unusual. And when he came back, he said, "Oh, you 5 people came in through the front door, but you 2 came in from the back."
Huh.
And they couldn't believe it, but yeah, they did.
Wow.
And on it goes. So these kinds of things also made him start questioning just the standard theory that consciousness in the brain, and, when the brain stops functioning, life, it stops and whatever,
Yeah,
whatever.
because that's like you said, that's not actually backed by science. There's no hard, fast scientific proof that shows that the consciousness would stop when the brain stops. And that's so interesting. I never thought that's wow. That's- and
Yeah.
and it's because if we could dive into that 1 second, what does the yoga wisdom say about consciousness then, to just understand that better? Like, what
Well,
is
according to
consciousness?
the yoga system teaching, that the soul is the person, not the body, not the mind, but the soul, the individual spiritual spark, is the person. And spirit, by nature, is conscious. So a spiritual person is eternally conscious. Consciousness is a symptom of the soul. And so therefore, whether the soul is in the body or out of the body or whatever, the consciousness is always there.
Mm.
And so that's the true explanation, and also which makes sense. That's why the person out of his body, hovering around above the room, is conscious of everything going on.
Because the spirit soul has
He's the
this,
one who's seeing,
yeah. Mm,
he's the experiencer.
mm.
And they say too, in these documented out of body experiences and near death experiences, in some cases they was watching this whole taking place or at the scene of the accident or whatever, and I didn't know it was me that they were working on. He was observing the whole thing of a dead body and people trying to resuscitate it, and he didn't even connect that that's me.
Oh.
He was watching like, oh, he just drove up and saw a stranger down there.
Because they're so separated from their body at that
So
moment that they don't.
separated.
Wow.
And then, he did kinda this one guy was saying he kinda recognized it and said, "Okay," and he went back into his body, and then all of a sudden, all the pain of the crushed body hit him like a thunderbolt, and he just it was unbearable, and I said he was saying, "I don't wanna be here," you know? "I don't wanna be here. I wasn't experiencing this before." So it's total separation of the body and the person.
Mm.
Yeah.
No.
And I actually had a friend that had a set experience that he described it exactly like that. He was in a car accident, and at the moment of impact, he left his body and was above watching, and the people drive up and jump out and come try to help, and the ambulance arrives, and, all the commotion going on, and he's just watching. But he did know it was his body. He did. And so at one point he decided, "Well, I guess I better go back down there." And he went and re-entered his body, and he told me that immediately this pain was unbelievable. It was all the crushed ribs and everything, and he's just experiencing that. But when he was out of the body, it was totally nothing.
Mm.
So
It makes you curious about what about all the people that choose not to come back? What happens then? But that's a whole another discussion. Yeah. But
yeah.
so one of the things that I took away from this also is like this curiosity, because he said basically another quote, I think he was reading or paraphrasing, that it's not enough to ask, if or to know that the universe exists, but you've got to ask how it got into being. And if you
Yeah.
start asking that question, then it's it because in science it's like, well, you can't really ask that question because we don't know somehow or other, and that's good enough, and we should just be content with that and happy with that somehow it just got into being. But are we allowed to ask and be curious? I mean, maybe that's it is a really interesting point. Like, how did it come into being? How did the Big Bang start?
And I think he also included in it how and why.
Why? Yes. Mm.
Yeah. And that's the nature of humans, is to question, to ask such a question, So they come to a point, okay, it's here, and then gradually concluded it's the an higher intelligence that made it happen and so on. And then why?
Yeah.
Like what is the point? What is the reason? And of course, the Vedic scriptures give us all those answers. Which is another reason the Vedas are so unique, is all these questions that naturally occur, throughout the ages, the Vedas have the answers. So if you don't have that source of true information, you got to speculate,
Yeah.
and conclude, well, probably because of whatever, but you never know, you never know if that's really true or not.
Right. Yeah.
And that's the scientific approach. They reach a point and then they speculate
Mm.
based on this and this and this, probably this,
Exactly.
whatever. But, the Vedic teaching is complete from time immemorable.
And then that's such a wonderful. Then we have that. It doesn't mean I have to accept everything, or I will accept, I mean, definitely won't mean that I will understand everything right now, because it's complex and it's in one way it is, in one way it's simple, but still I will not be able to know know it in my heart, but it's there for me, and I can start to study it and relate to it and hear about it and meditate on it, not least. And, you know,
Yes, that's right. And I mean, you and I are using a computer right now, and I don't anyway, maybe you know more, or you do know much more than me, but I don't know how it works. I got no idea. We're on Zoom. What is Zoom? How does that work? And how is it this microphone, which I push a button and it comes on, I click something and we start having sound transmission from thousands of kilometers away. How does it work? I don't know, but it's working. You know? Do I need to know all the way it works?
yeah.
I don't need to know. I can use it
Mm.
without knowing in any way how it works. So whether I'm a scientist or a computer geek who knows how it all works, or I don't know anything, the results is pretty much the same. So that's people say, "Well, I don't understand, but why? But you know, why don't you freak out about your smartphone? How does that work?" You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
throw your smart. I won't reset this smartphone because I don't know how it works. You know, you don't do that. It's
Mm.
just you take it, you do this, you do that, and the result is there.
Well, you experience that it works. I guess that's the point, you know? Like, even if you don't understand really how, like chanting these mantras that we're always coming back to, is you don't really understand how it can work. I mean, it's hard for wrap the mind around that, but you can experience that it works. Like we're talking here. I mean, it obviously works. So
Yeah,
we can, you
exactly,
know.
exactly.
And yeah, that's like like you said again about atheism, like there has never been a society you referred to that in history there has never been a society that has been atheistic, like that, at least for a long time before it collapsed. So what we're doing now is just a big societal experiment, you know, and what all the societies previously obviously have worked. And it's all been a nice in tune balance. You have the moral codes which are coming from a sense of a higher truth, a higher authority, or natural instincts, like he referred to, that if God were a God of love, like how would he instill what he wanted from us? He would instill it in natural instincts in us, more or less, that
Yeah,
like are universal, that you cannot take away. Like you referred to again, like wherever you are, there are certain things, certain rules. There's never been naturally a rule that a man can have any wife, or, you know, that it's like, or the selfishness is a virtue. It's just, it's,
yeah. That was one thing he said. Every society agrees that honesty and truthfulness and kindness and love and compassion and tolerance and all those are accepted as good qualities,
yeah, yeah.
regardless of who is where. But no society ever has said selfishness is a good thing.
Mm.
And it's just like, because we all know it's not.
Yeah, but that's the experiment we're in. And, you know, I, experience tells me, and also from just this opening week we just had, that apparently people in that society, if you make that experiment, you put people in that society, you have people experiencing that, you know, the focus on the self and the selfishness, and, you know, then the result will be that people are not very happy, and they are in anxiety, and they need something else. And we had, yes, so many people who came and just expressed that and felt so grateful that we had a place where you could come in that state and just ground yourself and come back to something deeper,
Yeah, just
basically. So,
like he was saying, a secular society has no real foundation,
mm.
and eventually it collapses.
Yeah, I think that's interesting. There's no like thread. There's no common denominator or nothing that binds it together naturally in a secular society.
Yeah, yeah. There's no reason for it to exist, really. Whereas a spiritually based society has a real foundation.
Yeah,
And that's what really stands the test of time.
Well, if you personally follow the philosophy that there is no reason that I exist, then obviously, you know, apply that to society as a whole, which is just a collection of individuals, then you'll have just there is no meaning, there is no purpose. Then
And
yeah,
that's what
there's
more and more people are realizing. The society as we know it has no purpose. Remember, we talked about that study that it was recently done and showing that the Generation Z people, and that's people born between 1994 and 2012 or 2014, are more and more turning toward religion, spiritual life, and a lot, not just one or two. And when asked why, what is this movement about? They said, because we've tried all these other things, which are products of a secular society. You know, the intoxications of all types, the illicit sex and trans this and changing and all the things that are supposed to make you happy and make your life better and so on. They've tried all that. And they look at it from any kind of a perspective and they see there's no purpose here. What's the it's really purposeless. And we, the spirit souls, need a purpose in life. Everybody knows that. You know, the most, lonely, drifting person is the person who has no purpose. Like, why exist? If there's no reason to exist, then why? And so they're seeing the only place that offers any kind of purpose in life is a spiritual direction. And so they're pursuing that in large numbers, in all different kinds of faiths, in Christianity and all the other faiths as well. They're seeing a big uptick. And the Western countries are the most, because they're the most secular, right? They're the most purposeless societies. There's just nothing there. There's nothing going on. And so that's why in those countries, they're getting the most response from this.
So obviously it's not about, religion is only for the poor and the weak and the stupid. But I mean, I know there's that thought that, oh, there's still an illusion. Oh, they're still there. They're still that old fashioned. They're still clinging on to these old beliefs and just some vague thing. But now we're seeing, no, it's, you see like Charles Murray, you see all these really, really highly intelligent people start to question things. And
Yeah. And when you start questioning, that's where you go to.
yeah, oh, exactly. Yeah.
Well, when you really deeply question, that's the only answer. Because all the other answers have already proven not correct. They don't give you what you're looking for. So that's why we've always tried to encourage people to be a seeker, a true seeker, not just a groupie who just follows along with everything that comes, just mindlessly following like a sheep. One word for humans is sheeple. They just follow some leader, and that leads them in one direction and then another direction and whatever. They never think. They never use the human form of life for its intended purpose of contemplation, thinking, making choices based on knowledge, etc. Yeah.
And wherever that leads you, it doesn't mean that you have to, and that's not what it's about. You have to accept something, you have to believe something, but seek, be open to that idea and look for the truth. I mean,
Seek and you shall find. That's a
yeah,
spiritual truth.
yeah, yeah. Maybe there are things that we don't exactly understand right now. Like he was referring to like how
And not seek.
yeah. Uh, he was referring to how some people are tone deaf, and we can understand that there are some people who just it's really hard for them to understand music. Like, it's nothing for them. Then, in the same way, maybe we can understand that also we are in our current state. If we don't live any of this or believe any of this, maybe there is something that maybe we're like the tone deaf people, but to the spiritual life, maybe there are some things that I cannot hear, I cannot understand right now, but still are real. Like who am I? I guess that's what I'm trying to say. Like I'm not.
Yeah.
Maybe there's more than I know.
It just came to my mind about in California, the gold rush in 1849. They discovered gold. In Sutter's Mill, which is in the foothills of the Sierra Mountains, east of Sacramento, San Francisco. And so there was a guy that discovered the first gold in the American River. And so I don't know why. It didn't make sense. But anyway, he went and told people. You see, if he found gold, if he just kept it for himself, true materialistic idea. Don't tell anybody, just grab all the gold you can and go and spend it, go back, get some more, and so on. But no, he went and told people, or told somebody, and the word spread like wildfire. And it's stated that within 6 or 7 days, San Francisco was actually deserted. People closed their businesses, left their jobs, left their families, grabbed whatever they could, and headed for the gold country. And in that days, it was horse and wagon days. So it would take, I don't know, a week, 2 weeks to get there, depending, but they were going. And it said that there was a trail and the horses and wagons were so tightly jammed up, one after the other, that if you got out of that line, it could take you a week to get back in because nobody would let you in.
Wow.
And they all went up there to find gold. I mean, they were seekers, right? But what did they do? They looked and they looked. Some found, most didn't. They went through all kinds of hardships. And even the people who, luckily enough, found the gold, there were other guys who were just waiting. And for the guys who found the gold, they let them accumulate it, and then they go in and rob them. And so they didn't wind up with anything anyway. But they were seekers. That's the point. They were looking, overcoming every obstacle, difficulty, gave up everything because they were looking for what they thought was the goal, right? Gold, the GOAL, gold. But if you're a seeker, you'll keep looking. So you don't find what you think is here, it's here. You just keep looking. And when you find it, you'll know. So be a seeker of truth, a seeker of happiness, a seeker of spiritual life, and you'll be successful. Yeah.
And it won't slip out of your hands, or no one can rob it from you.
Yeah, nobody can rob it. Really, the only people that made money in the gold rush days were the guys who went to that area and set up the bars and the brothels,
Oh,
sold all the equipment that the people would need, the gold pans, the shovels, they're the ones who made the money, and the other guys, usually they didn't make anything or a little bit. If they got it, they lost it. So anyway, just some history. The point being, again, seekers. Yeah. Seek and ye shall find.
well, maybe if we should chant a bit. I don't know about IKEA. We could.
Yeah. And this person we've referred to throughout this podcast, Charles Murray, he's
Mhm.
still looking.
Mhm.
His journey is not over. He just and he says he's having a really lot of fun on the journey. He was in very good spirits, and a little bit he's realized he's appreciating it very much,
Mhm.
and he's seeing that's where I'm going in life.
Yeah, good point. Because easy to find a team and join in, and then you think that's it. Now I'm done. No, it's it. You keep seeking. The journey is an eternal journey, and it will only make your life happier and more full of meaning and life and
Yeah.
purpose, and it's just never ending.
Yeah, there's a real reward
Mm.
of a level that is beyond any material reward. So it's worth it for sure.
Totally.
Okay, so yeah, we can just chant without guitar or anything.
Mm. Oh, that's great. Should I,
Okay.
I? I don't know. You said Bawala said something about. I don't know. How should I do this? Should I turn on it?
You don't need they've changed Zoom now. You don't need to put on original sound.
Okay.
It actually sounds better.
So I just leave it like this and then we chant. Okay.
Do what?
No, I'll just leave it like this.
Yeah, just leave it like that. And he's saying it's actually better.
Mhm.
Okay, so Haribo Nitai Gaur, Haribo. Gopala Govindarama Madana Mohana. Gauranga Haribo. If you've been watching our podcast before, this is basically the mantras we chant. And by the way, mantras are transcendental sounds coming from the spiritual world, and they have this invisible power to make us happy, touch us, people that we really are. Hari Bol Nitai Gaur, Hari Bol.
Haribol, Nitai Gaur, Haribol.
Hare Bo Nitai Gaur, Hari Bol.
Haribol, Nitai Gaur, Haribol.
Hare Bo Nitai Gaur, Hari Bol.
Haribol, Nitai Gaur, Haribol.
Hari Bo Nitai Gaur, Hari Bol.
Haribol, Nitai Gaur, Haribol.
Hare Bo Nitai Gaur, Hari Bol.
Haribol, Nitai Gaur, Haribol.
Oranga Hari Bol, Oranga Hari Bol.
Goranga Haribol, Goranga Gauranga Haribol, Gauranga Haribol.
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 Gopala Govinda Rama Madana Mohana.
Gopala Govinda Rama, Madana Mohana.
Gopala Govinda Rama Madana Mohana.
Gopala Govinda Rama, Madana Mohana.
Gopala Govinda Rama Madana Mohana.
Gopala Govinda Rama, Madana Mohana.
Gopala Govinda Rama Madana Mohana.
Gopala Govinda Rama, Madana Mohana.
Gopala Govinda Rama Madana Mohana.
Gopala Govinda Rama, Madana Mohana.
Gopala Govinda Rama Madana Mohana.
Gopala Govinda Rama, Madana Mohana.
Gopala Govinda Rama Madana Mohana.
Gopala Govinda Rama, Madana Mohana.
Gopala Govinda Rama Madana Mohana.
Gopala Govinda Rama, Madana Mohana.
Gopala Govinda Rama Madana Mohana.
Gopala Govinda Rama, Madana Mohana.
Gopala Govinda Rama Madana Mohana.
Gopala Govinda Rama, Madana Mohana.
Gopala Govinda Rama Madana Mohana.
Gopala Govinda Rama, Madana Mohana.
Gopala Govinda Rama Madana Mohana.
Gopala Govinda Rama, Madana Mohana.
Gopala Govindarama Madana Mohana.
Gopala Govindarama Madana Mohana.
Gopala Govindarama Madana Mohana.
Gopala Govindarama Madana Mohana.
Haribol,
Haribol.
Haribol,
Haribol.
Haribol,
Haribol.
Haribol,
Haribol.
Haribol, Haribol.
Haribol. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Ruben. Thank everyone who's watching this podcast.
Thank you for being curious, everyone.
Yeah. Curiosity, valuable thing. Just use it correctly because there's another saying, curiosity killed the cat.
I was just thinking about that saying.
So be careful what you're curious about. So we'll see you on the next one.
We will. Thank you, Valkia. Great.
Namaste. Haribol.
Haribol.